Hi, this is Walt Wolfram, coming to you from Raleigh, North Carolina, and North Carolina State University. I want to talk about linguistic diversity in higher education because, as it turns out, it is often ignored or dismissed. And this card here kind of captures that because it says, I don't judge people based on race, creed, color, or gender. I judge people based on spelling, grammar, punctuation, and sentence structure. In a sense, it says, well, even places that are quite conscious and concerned about diversity may ignore the role of language in terms of its consideration of diversity, which is something that I found in the United States and also elsewhere. Originally, language diversity was not an issue because it was limited, education was limited to those who were elite to begin with. And so because of that elitism, people didn't consider language. Like, for example, in the United States, we tended not to study living languages. We studied Greek and Latin because they were the prestigious languages. So when education was broadened to be more inclusive, that same attitude persisted. And those who didn't speak a prestigious variety of language were often considered sort of out of the loop and were discriminated against. So if you look at this quote from Lippy Green, it says discrimination based on language variation is so commonly accepted, so widely perceived as appropriate, that it must be seen as the last backdoor to discrimination, and the door stands wide open. What she's saying here is that people who may be very sensitive to other issues in terms of discrimination are often insensitive to language discrimination, and that it needs to be considered. And so that's what I want to talk about in terms of the opportunity. A few years ago, a bunch of linguists convinced HUD, which in the United States stands for Housing and Urban Development, which is affordable housing for people. We convinced them to put together a commercial that they played for public audiences on television. And I want to just sort of play that for you so you get an idea of what that sounds like.
Hello. Yes, can I ask a few questions about the apartment on Park Street?
What was your name?
My name is Juan Hernandez.
It's been rented.
Oh, it's gone. Hello, my name is Sanjay Kumar. I am calling about the apartment on Park Street.
It's not available.
Not available?
Hello, my name is Tyrone Washington. I'm calling about the apartment on Park Street.
Just been rented.
Hello, I am Chen Ling. My name is Khalid bin Ali. I'm Tuan Vo.
Hello, my name is Moshe Goldberg.
I use a wheelchair. It's gone. Not available. All right. Thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Graham Wellington. I'm calling about the apartment for rent on Park Street. Is that still available?
Yes, it is.
What is?
Yes.
Really?
Housing discrimination is illegal. If you think you've been a victim because of your race, color, national origin, sex, religion, disability, or family status, call us. Fair housing. It's not an option. It's the law.
Well, this seems to be limited to telephone conversation. In reality, linguistic profiling can take place anywhere, and it does take place in our classrooms. There's a definition of linguistic profiling here, which people have concentrated on for about 2 decades now, but it can happen in many contexts, including employment, housing, access to service, criminal convictions. In the United States, they're estimated to be between 2 to 4 million cases annually of linguistic profiling related to housing. That's 6,000 to 15,000 cases per day. And of course, it's illegal, as we see the law that covers that. So while we think of that, and we may be sensitive to it, the fact of the matter is linguistic discrimination is not limited to telephone calls for housing employment. And in this respect, we have to talk about academic prejudice, which is defined here. The collision of academic prejudice and accent is particularly ironic. Academics tend to be center-left nearly everywhere and talk endlessly about class and multiculturalism. And yet, accent and dialect are still barely on many people's minds as deserving respect. In a sense, that's an important observation about the fact that academics, which tend to be more progressive than popular culture, are still set in their own discriminatory terms. And just because we're progressive in one area doesn't make us progressive in other areas. Actually, as a matter of fact, inclusivity can be quite restricted and selective. So what about language diversity and university life? Okay, the fact of the matter is academics are gatekeepers, guardians, and authorities of language. My parents did not go to college. My siblings did not go to college. I was the first college learner. I went to college and I spoke a dialect that was distinctly Philadelphian and was also working class. When I went there, I realized, because people would sometimes ask me where I was from and sort of mock the way I talk, I realized that my speech was not up to the sort of standard expected at the university. I tried to change it, and I tried to mimic my professors because they were the models for me. And so we have to understand that we are considered to be the authorities of language. We provide models for students in the normative uses of academic language. And this happens all over the world. Furthermore, our attitudes and behavior towards language diversity affect students' attitudes about themselves, the university, and participation in university life. And my point here is that gatekeepers, those who are typically viewed as the ones who are going to exclude us and going to ridicule us and going to stigmatize our language, are in the best position to crash the gates of gatekeeping. A few years ago, we did a study of students from a particular dialect area in the mountains of west of North Carolina, where they speak so-called Appalachian English. What were their experiences when they came to the university with respect to language? So, for example, we have substantive data that says that this kind of comment is not unlikely. I don't really speak up much in class and stuff like that unless I feel really comfortable, because I can hear, people snickering or stuff like that when I talk. The fact of the matter is that can really inhibit students. I was about to give a talk a few years back, one of the first talks on linguistic diversity in the university. And I came out of my office and I was eavesdropping a conversation between a young man and a young woman. And the young man said, "Asians have weird accents. They use sounds that don't even exist." I don't even know what that means. How can you use a sound that doesn't exist? But it also shows a level of prejudice and discrimination that these two were having. I just happened to walk past and hear it as I was going to give this talk. And of course, I quickly put it into the talk. But it's not just students, it's faculty as well. A few years ago, we've gotten a lot of publicity in our newspapers about our work on dialects of English. And a colleague who happened to be a distinguished professor of sociology saw me on the street corner, and she said, "Well, I read the article in the newspaper, and that's not how old people from Raleigh talk, not if they're educated." Now, I would dare to say the same remark about what she worked on in terms of housing and so forth. And yet she felt completely comfortable with making a judgment in terms of the people of Raleigh, where we have over 300 people. We've acoustically analyzed, 10,000 vowels and so forth. And so in that sense, it becomes really important to recognize that language prejudice is not simply something that students may have towards others, but it's something that university personnel. So here's what we found from students. One, it affected their course participation. So, for example, if you are considered to have a stigmatized variety of language, you tend not to speak in class as much. You tend not to contribute because you're afraid of being judged on that. And as you saw the quote that I mentioned before, you hear little snickers. It also adds barriers in social academic settings. So we need to prove our intelligence, overcome our stereotypes. So I, as a person who spoke a working class dialect of Philadelphia when I went to school in Illinois, had to overcome this prejudice as an athlete who spoke this dialect. I wasn't dumb. And that was the barrier, that they didn't know whether I was smart or not. They were judging my intelligence based on my language. It also heightens awareness of language stigmatization. So, for example, lots of students, for the first time, they really interact with different dialects when they come to the university, and they find out their home dialect was stigmatized. I never knew that I spoke a dialect that was stigmatized until I earned the reputation of a linguistic other. As a matter of fact, I went back to my university 50 years after I graduated because I played on the last undefeated football team. As you know, University of the United States are very connected with their athletic teams. And so I spoke this dialect, and we went around the room, and I was saying, what do you remember about this person from 50 years ago? You know what remembered about me? That I talked funny, that I didn't talk the same way that they did. And so we see that it's a really an indelible kind of imprint that this brings to people. And then there's a sense of belonging. So we're influenced by the perception about dialect. So our choices are either accommodate to other people's dialects that are more prestigious at the university, or I'll isolate and stay with the people who talk like you. So that's one of the options. So finding this out, we then interviewed over 80 tenure-track faculty members about their perceptions, and saw that they manifest lots of these prejudice that some of the students had, particularly in an area in the South, which is very dialectally rich. So we started a program. Which was interdisciplinary. It had administrative staff, it had faculty, it had technology. We then chose a comprehensive also. Students, faculty, staff, the entire university. We developed a student ambassador group for discussions, presentations, workshops in dormitories and so forth. And we produced online references for integration into classroom instruction. Now, what we have done over the years is a full program of public venues for education about dialect awareness and dialect prejudice. So, for example, we've done documentaries, oral histories. We've done on television throughout the United States 16 programs about dialect differences that take up everything from Southern speech, Mountain speech, African American language, American Indian speech. We also constructed exhibits. So, for example, every year we have a large state fair where a million people come. We have a booth that for 10 days we staff and talk to people about language. We give out buttons and so forth. We also write trade books and popular articles, and we developed an entire curricula on language differences for students who are in grade 8. That is, kids who are about 13 or 14 years old. So we've been teaching that program for over 30 years in one of our sites. We also have massive media and social media. So, for example, we have a YouTube station that has over 23 million views. All of our documentaries there. There are over 90 vignettes about language differences and so forth. And that becomes a place where people can go and see these dialects and get positive feedback about dialect diversity. And then, of course, we have institutional program. So at North Carolina State University, we did over 50 workshops, everything from the staff of the university to the chancellor and the administrators to the faculty, new student orientation. So we gave, these workshops. We also have videos on language diversity used in orientation and other venues. We also have university monitors that have our advertisements. So you'll see an advertisement about linguistic diversity as you walk around the campus and see these television monitors. And we have Linguistic Diversity Ambassadors, which is a student organization that has meetings about controversial issues of language. So, for example, about language and ethnicity, queer language, foreign accent and discrimination, sign language diversity, and so forth. And we offer these sessions for linguistic diversity in our first year courses. So the Linguistic Diversity Ambassador gives 20 to 30 lectures a year to students who are learning first year writing. And we also have online resources. So we have a complete program. We've also developed videos where we represent language diversity across campus, voices of students, staff, faculty, administration. We have support from the administrative hierarchy. So, for example, one of the people who comments on this is the head officer, we call them a chancellor in our program, over all of the faculty, the students, and a staff, which comes to about 40,000 people. And what we do in this, which we've used for orientation and use around campus, is we have expert interpretation of the significance of diversity. Thank you very much, and have a great conference.